Hey everyone, so today we're going to go over Project 7, and here I am in Student View. So I'm going to go to Assignments, and then Project 7. And you can see that this is due April 21st, which today is the 9th. So we have a week and then a little bit. Technically, this is your spring break right now. This is what would have been spring break, and it still is. So we're going to give a week and then until that following Tuesday. And you'll notice that's due at 12:30 p.m. So if you look at the examples for Project 7, you can see that it uses a graphic, and this is going to be a graphic that you've already made. We're drawing from projects 3, 5, or 6 because that's all the projects that have graphics already vectorized. And you're also going to be picking a shape that plays off of that graphic and combining them in a way. So you can see from these examples that there's a lot of different options for shapes. And also that some of them have been edited in some way, so they're not standard circles, squares, what have you. Okay. So you're going to be taking one of your projects, whether it's 3, 5, or 6, and you're going to choose a shape. Got some options here, but you can also create your own. It can be more abstract. You really want to be playing off of your project and the shapes that are inherent in that and sort of complementing it or even contrasting it and playing with it from there. You're not going to have a hand-drawn component, and you're going to want to submit it two ways. So the first is going to be an Illustrator file, and the second is going to be a JPEG. There's also going to be a discussion board component. So make sure you're commenting on 2 people and also be really specific with your comments. So if there's any way I can still ask you a question, make sure you're answering that question for me. So if you say, I like this area over here, I like the way that, or I like your choice for using a circle. Why do you like that choice? What about that choice is really appealing to you, right? So if I can ask why or what, that means it's not being specific enough. So I've got all the tools that you're going to probably be using. Some of these you might not use, but most of them. And then our rubric down here. So there's a rubric for the critique component. There's a rubric for how you're composing it within the composition, within the edge of the frame. So you want to leave about an inch margin on either side, as well as the top and the bottom. You also want to be playing around to make sure that the shape is right for yours. So don't just settle on the first thing. Don't just settle on, something simple, a simple solution. Play with a lot of solutions until you find one that really clicks. Make sure you're exporting at a high quality, and make sure that you have an understanding of the technical tools, which we'll talk about right now. So in Illustrator, by this point, you should have located your digital files that you used for either 3, 5, or 6. And you can have that handy, whether it's on your desktop or some other location where you know where it is. I like to keep things on my desktop. I like to drop and drag. I just think it's so easy. but you're going to create new, and you want it to be 9 by 12 or 12 by 9, just depending on your orientation that you choose. So I'm going to do 9 by 12 and create that. And there's a couple ways to get your graphic in there. You can do file place, which I'll do right now. You can drag and drop also, that's also an option. But I'll do file place and I'll go to my desktop. And I was playing around with different graphics and different shapes for them, but in the end I decided on this one. So this would be from Project 5. So I just clicked. That's how file place works. You select the file and then you have to click within the document and it drops it. So after I clicked, I've got my selection tool and I'm gonna hover over the shapes. So I can't really drag from out here in this negative space. I have to hover over the positive space right here. I can move that around to where I like it. Of course, I can also scale by holding down Shift and clicking and dragging. Command Z is going to undo anything I've done. Command Z. I can rotate to get it how I like it. Okay, Edit Undo is another way to do Command Z. Okay, so then I'm going to click off of it. And before I make my shape, I want to lock this layer. And that's going to be in the Layers panel right here. So you should have all of these tabs right here when you first start Illustrator. And this tab is for the Layers panel. If you don't see these tabs, you can go up to Window and then Layers. And that should pop up right away. I'm just going to go ahead and drag this out to the side. So I've got that here, and I want to see properties over here. Okay, so I've got my layers panel, and I'm going to go ahead and lock this layer. And what that does is it allows me to not make any changes to it, like accidentally grab it, accidentally affect this layer in any way when I'm trying to make my shapes. So that's pretty important. I'm also going to create a new layer, which is this little plus sign right here. And once I create a new layer, I can go to my Shapes tool. And I'm going to choose the ellipse. So my Shapes tool, you should see it over here. It might be a rectangle, it might be a circle. In order to change it and get this drop-down menu, you have to hold down your click, like hold down on the mouse, and it'll drop down like that, and you can just go out to the side and change tools that way. So I'm going to do the ellipse tool, and I'm going to draw a little circle right there, and I'm going to move it with my move tool. And so you can see that right now it's fully white and it's got a black stroke. So in order to affect stroke and affect fill, I'm going to go over here on my toolbar, and you can see this top square right here is fill, and this bottom one, which looks like an outline, is the stroke. It's the outline. So I'm going to double click on my fill, and from there I can pick my color. And for the stroke, if I wanted a stroke, I could pick the color for that as well. You can also change the thickness of the stroke. So that's going to be over here in my properties panel. And I can just bump that up or down. I actually want to get rid of it completely, so I'm going to do 0. Okay. And so you'll notice that my shape is in front of my graphic, which is actually the reverse order of how I want it. I want it to be behind my graphic. So I'm going to go into my layers panel and I'm just going to drag it beneath there. And so I'm feeling pretty good about this. It kind of looks like his hands are dipped in the sun, right? I'm going to play with size. And by the way, I'm holding down Shift to make my circle perfect. I'm going to move him to the side. I'm going to go ahead and unlock this layer so I can move him, right? Because now I'm composing him within the entire picture frame, and I'm thinking about that. Okay. So that's an option, but I want to keep playing around with all the different possibilities. So what I'm going to do is hide this layer, and I'm going to toggle the visibility with this eyeball. So it's still there, but I just can't see it for the time being. Anytime I want to bring it back, I can always click this eyeball again. But for now, I'm just going to create a new layer and play around with some different tools. Okay, so there's the rectangle tool. I'm gonna also experiment with the eraser tool, which is over here. And as long as my shape is selected, I can go into it with the eraser tool. I can actually click and drag my way through the eraser tool. Can go to my selection tool, and now these are two separate shapes. Can double click on one of them and move it. And you can see that I'm already having complications with this layer not being locked. It's really hard to grab my other layers. So I'm going to go ahead and lock that again. Double click, move that around. Double click to get out. So that's an interesting effect, right? I might like that. You can also make your own shapes. So you can make your own shapes. Well, first let me go over the triangle tool as well. So the triangle is going to be under the star tool. I'm going to go ahead and create a new layer. And as you're clicking and dragging with the star tool, if you hit your up or down arrow keys, it changes the amount of points that you have. So I can go ahead and get a triangle going. Can rotate him. From here, not only can I scale it, so if I don't hold down Shift, my scale can become less even, right? But I can also go to my anchor point tool. So this video is about to end, but I'm going to make a part 2, and we'll go over anchor point tool.